Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Thanks for checking out the first video. This one's gonna be about making a WallerMade carved coffee table. So if that interests you, just stick around and kind of go over that. So just giving you guys a quick overview of the entire process for making the table. There's a few steps on the screen, so you can take those in. We're gonna get into more detail as we go along. So the first step in this project was forming a slab, and that's not always a step that we have to do. Depending on what we end up discussing with the client, we may end up using a full slab or making like joining and forming our own slab. So for this project, we ended up joining our own slab using a process called laminating, where we use multiple boards glued up side by side to make wider slabs then. So you'll see me here cutting the boards to length, and once we have each of those boards at the correct length, we make another cut, a rip cut, which is a cut along the edges of those planks. And the reason that we do this is to make sure that once we're ready to have the joints and butt them up against each other, we'll have a nice flush connection so that we can have a properly laminated slab. Once the slab has been laminated, the next step is to just make sure that everything is plain as a single cohesive piece. So what that means is you'd want everything to be nice and flat on a whole. And once you get that to be plain, you now have a nice flat surface, and you can use that as your wooden canvas. So let's step aside for a little bit and get some background going, because you're probably wondering what's going on. You're looking at this video wondering what's happening. So you're looking at the backyard wood shop right now, and one of the perks of us being at the end unit is that we get to use this little side yard and set up essentially a temporary wood shop. So right now this is where we work on our projects, but as you can imagine, since it's outside, it's not something that we can leave overnight or in certain weather conditions, because you wouldn't want the project to just be left exposed to the elements. So once we now have our nice flat slab, we have our wooden canvas, we can start to now get to carving. And the first step for the carving is transferring the overall shape that we want our carving to end up being onto the canvas. This will give us a reference so that we always know, okay, this is what we're working towards, and then we can kind of start to chip away and take away material wherever we can and work towards that final product. So this project's carving is gonna be in the shape of the island of Jamaica, because as a Jamaican, you have to come out representing. So this is actually gonna be pretty cool. So once we've outlined our design, we now can start the coarse carving process. And the first thing that we're really going to do with that is cut away as much as we can to get a mass material removal going. So what I normally do is I use my jigsaw and just remove a lot of the clear excess. That makes the piece much more manageable, easier to work with, easier to move around, and it kind of gets you looking closer to your final product, and that allows the inspiration to build as you get closer and closer. So once you cut away all of that excess of wood that you know that you're not going to need for sure, we can start now getting a little bit more refined, and that's where we end up using the grinder. The grinder is kind of what we use to blend the wood, give it a smoother finish on the edges, and make the shape kind of flow much more naturally. So the grinder is actually probably one of my favorite tools in terms of working with it and using it in the woodworking process. I think that this is where a lot of creativity gets to be injected into the piece, and you kind of get to put your personal style in more. You kind of get to flick your wrist a little bit almost. So from here, we're really focused on being a lot more gentle with our actions, trying to do things gradually. So now when we're removing material from the piece, everything's going to be done in passes that are kind of smaller, rather than just removing chunks or just bunches of material at the same time. So over time, we're trying to get closer and closer to what we actually want, and that was why it was very key to draw what we want as our final design on the piece. And with that design being there in the end, we can really have that safety net to know, okay, I can take off my material gradually, take my time and blend everything. And as we go along, we can add the details, because those details are what really take that piece to the next level. Once you add those details, it can really change the look and the feel of the final piece. So after continuing with that consistent refinement, we'll notice that over time, the overall feeling of the piece will kind of give changes, and we'll adjust to that. One example I can give is if we find that the design has a sharp edge that we know is gonna be a hazard for people, or if we find that there's a certain point in the table that we think might create a spilling hazard, then we kind of readjust and massage the shape and change it to be that, okay, we can avoid these things through the process. So it's kind of like adaptive iteration. This is important because we know that, okay, yes, it's going to be a nice piece. It's going to be something that's supposed to be looking good, especially bringing your space together, but it's also supposed to be able to provide you a function, and in providing that function, do that function extremely well. Because I think that this is something that makes it that this piece, once you have it, it's something that you'll be happy to have in your house. And a part of that is, you know, at the end of the day, it looking good, as well as you wanting to keep it because it looks good and it matches your style, in addition to the fact that it's going to be durable. So it's something that you, given the choice that you want to keep it, you're now able to keep it. The piece will last as long as you want to have it. And that's something that we take extremely personally, because we're trying to reduce a lot of this, you know, the fast disposable kind of furniture kind of thinking. So back to what we're doing on screen now. Since we finished grinding, now we're on to kind of prepping our final surface. So what we did was we sanded it down and gave it a conditioner to make sure that the wood is kind of opening up and getting ready for this color that we're about to apply here. One thing I'll say is, like with every WallerMade piece, obviously it's custom made to exactly what you want. So we have a color that's supposed to be matching the location that we already know where this table is going and the kind of style that this client has. So this table is colored in such a way and styled in such a way that it can grow with her style. Once we're done with all the finishing chemicals and all of that kind of stuff, we just let it air out for a bit to let it dry. And then once it's ready to handle, we set up so that we can do the leg assembly. So I've actually had a few people reach out and ask me, hey, how you kind of learn to do all of these things, how you know what you're doing, how you know what power tools to use, how to use them, how you know what chemicals to use and what they'll do. Let me tell you, a lot of the secret is really just getting out there and then trying it yourself. And for me, the way that I got to do that is I watch a lot of videos, kind of do my research and see what people have done before, and just go out there and try it. I want to add though that I do have an extra layer of confidence in terms of how to try these things, because there's nothing that I would do without safety being the first step. And I feel like I've been safety trained in a lot of different areas because of my background. I've done work in wood shops, I've worked in construction, I'm familiar with like chemical labs, so I kind of know how to maneuver safely around all of these things without getting hurt. So yes, I want to reinforce that, yes, safety is key in anything that you're doing.
So I'm taking over to put on the legs, put some elbow grease in. I'm putting in some embeds now that are gonna stay in the table permanently. And then when we drop the legs on top, it's easy to just put a machine screw through. That way a client can just assemble it with a screwdriver or by hand. These legs are 16-inch hairpin legs. I love hairpin legs in our designs. I think the metal industrial look goes really, really well with the wood, especially the color. The matte black hairpin legs that we use just work really well with any design style. So that's why we love them so much. They're also really durable, and they highlight the top of the table as a statement in any room because they're so sleek and slim and also understated black. We really loved how this table turned out. The color was amazing, and it looked really good in the client's living room when we dropped it off. We have some pictures. It was around Olympic time, and you know, Jamaicans are very rowdy and very celebratory around Olympics because we always do so well. So it was nice to deliver a Jamaica piece around that time and see it in use, representing.
A huge thank you to everybody who made it to the end of the video. Really appreciate you taking the time to watch. I hope you appreciated our little post-production photo shoot there. You got to see Kellogg's the dog, which I'm sure you'll be seeing a lot more of him as we move forward. So hopefully you'll be hearing from us soon, and hopefully we'll be hearing from you guys soon. Thank you.